Hello and of course welcome to Analyzing Avatar. I nearly this week, Chris, wrote out Katara's opening for Avatar, but rephrased it to refer to you. But I just thought it was a lot of work for no payoff, so I didn't do it.
Well, I look forward to that when you can be asked.
When the world needed him to watch Avatar most, he hated animated TV.
But now, his feelings have changed.
10 years later, I've discovered Chris buried in an avalanche of Steven Universe, and have uncovered him in order to watch some Avatar. This week we watched The Blue Spirit, Chris. It's this episode is. This is such a frustrating episode because I think this is a really cool idea with maybe some of the sort of more flat execution. I wouldn't say it's weak execution. I would just say it's very it's a really cool idea executed absolutely adequately. Is that fair? Am I being harsh? I don't know. I really like this episode. There's a lot of very good stuff in this episode, but I always find this the jokes are a tiny bit flatter than usual. You know, the action's good but not spectacular. I don't know, everything just feels like it's just dialed down to medium. Maybe I'm gonna get reamed in the comments for that, but that's kind of how I feel about this one. But this, for those who don't remember, go on.
Yeah, no, you go. No, you recap first.
Well, I was just gonna say, for those who don't remember, of course, The Blue Spirit is the episode in which Aang heads out to get some to get a cure for Sokka and Katara, who are both ill from the storm of the previous episode. He finds a lady who tells him that he needs these frozen frogs, and in his attempt to get them, he gets captured by Zhao. And there's this mysterious blue spirit character that's sneaking about that ends up going to free Aang, and they end up sort of working together to escape. And then Aang discovers the blue spirit is in fact Zuko. This part of the episode, by the way, this is incredible. There's this amazing moment where Aang says, one of his best friends from back in the day was this kid called Kuzon, who was also Fire Nation, and he wonders aloud if they'd have been a different time and a different circumstances, would he and Zuko have been friends? To which Zuko responds by shooting a fireball at him. It's just an incredible moment. In otherwise, like I said, an episode I've got kind of mixed feelings about, but a really, really strong concept and a great idea. And if the episode ends, of course, with them sort of both parting, having something to think about a little bit. So yeah, I don't know. Am I being harsh, Chris? Am I being too harsh?
It's really tricky because I think as I was watching it. The episode is made by the fact that it is Fire Dude, and not because I was if this is a character that we've never seen that is like a super ninja getting Aang out, I'm gonna be gutted.
So you wanted it to be someone. You didn't mind who.
Yes,
you just
yes.
Wanted
So
it to be
when
someone.
it was him, I was like, well, that's who I wanted it to be. So when it was Fire Dude, I was like, brilliant. That's exactly who I wanted it to be under the mask.
Who else was a contender for you as you were watching the episode?
No one. It would have had to have been someone we didn't know. So I'm glad. So I think
because I remember thinking about Jet and
maybe
and what was that the Haru the rock dude whose dad got trapped on that was imprisoned on that boat. There's a bunch of one-off characters that I remember briefly considering.
Yeah, I briefly thought about Rock Dude, but not Jet. Jet hadn't crossed my mind. I'm pretty sure if the mask had come off and it had been Jet, I'd have been like, "Who the fuck's that?" Oh yeah.
Well, the thing with it, the thing that got me thinking about Jet was the dual wielding swords, because Jet had those dual sort of hook things that he used. So it was just something about that visual of the two-handed weaponry that.
Oh yeah, that's a good
sort
point.
of made me feel that was the but.
I think part of the problem is because I kind of agree with you, certainly the kind of first half of it, but it kind of kicks in when they do the escape and stuff, and it's a really kick-ass sequence, but it's kind of very, well, first of all, I was like, Dan, I mean, especially, so for context for listeners, it is the 13th of November, England is in the middle of a second lockdown. I'll be honest with you, mate, it wasn't the escapism it usually is when it starts with Sokka and Katara having a cough and a temperature and stuff. Brilliant. Don't we have enough of this?
We are in the midst of a global pandemic. You're right.
So,
I didn't even draw that link. That's funny.
So here's the thing. I think the episode really works because, as you say, that would we have been friends scene, and the fact that he is, the fact that Fire Dude saves him, and the fact that he's so kick-ass, and the poetry of that, especially in relation to the last episode, it really, really all works, and I think is an enjoyable, intriguing episode, especially the end because of that. But I think you're right about the fundamentals of the episode because you need the weight of the episode before. You need the weight of the history. If it had been Jet, I'd be like, meh. And the fact that one little change could drastically affect my view of the episode suggests that there's just something in the execution of the rest of it. Like, he's, the frog stuff is funny. Maybe it goes on too long. I don't know. Because it's fundamentally frog stuff, capture, kick-ass escape. Some really weighty stuff about them and the parallels between them at the end. But I think I agree with you. If it wasn't him, the episode should work even if the reveal is it's Jet. And I don't think it would. So I think there is something in the execution, and I don't know if that's pacing, if that's it's quite ABC maybe, but not even like beginning, middle and end. It almost, in some places, we've talked about before, you can see the strings sometimes.
Yes,
you can kind of you can see the strings of, right, well, we want him to rescue him, so Katara and Sokka can't be there. Why aren't they there? They're ill. And okay, so how does he get captured? He's after some frozen frogs because they're ill. Like I enjoyed the scene with the woman, and especially at the end, where with the frogs at the end, where she's where he's like, "You're crazy, aren't you?" And she's like, "Yeah,
that bit did make me laugh. That's a really funny joke.
It was very funny, but I think the episode is not all comedy, nor is it all kick-ass action. So it's trying to do a bit of everything. You can see the strings a little, maybe, but again, I'll be honest with you, it's funny because I felt exactly the same way as you. But it wouldn't surprise me if we got our asses kicked in the comments.
I think we will.
Because
I think we will. And you know what's funny is I think past Dan would have kicked Today Dan's ass for that. I've never stopped and looked at this episode that objectively, right? Because I watch it in amongst a run. When I most recently watched it, it was only a month back when me and Nadia sat down and rewatched all this. By the way, she's now rewatching it again, having been through Avatar and Korra. She's now going through it again and is already past us. So Nadia's passed us twice in the time we've been doing this. It's amazing.
Yeah, we're quite slow runners, Dan.
Yeah, we are. She's already like the end of season 1. But when I watched this, God, whatever it was, 4 weeks ago, maybe longer now. Oh God, no, it's got to be longer than that because we started recording this like a couple months back now. So yeah, a couple months back when I last watched this episode, I did not have these objections, but I wasn't watching it with a critical eye. I was just sitting down and watching it in a run of episodes. And when it follows the storm, it's this great little continuation of that. But then you sit and watch it in isolation, and you, because all the good jokes and it's clear from my comment a couple of weeks ago when you asked me to give you a hint for the storm, and I said frogs, that these two episodes a little bit merge in my head. That I think is very clear.
Yeah, and I can see why.
And I think that a little bit of what's brilliant about the storm mixes in with the bits that are good about this, and kind of paper over some of the cracks. But when you sit down and watch this episode in isolation, I was very surprised to find that the jokes were flatter than normal. Not massively so. There are a couple of good gags. Some of them are like maybe smile worthy. Like I like the two guys. They're kind of amused me that they say the Avatar could run as fast as the wind. Oh, that's just firelord propaganda. Like that's not a bad joke, but it just doesn't feel quite as sharp as normal.
I feel like this show at this point has done that joke enough to not do it anymore unless they're going to do something different with it.
Right, yes.
They've done this can't be the case, and it's immediately the case gag a few times. Yeah. So it just feels like this episode's just like slightly less sharp than the one before it. Like it's just like and fractionally, but it adds up over the course of the different things. I don't feel like the
the fight choreography in this is maybe up to the scratch of the previous episodes. Like, only fractionally, though. Only just enough to notice if you really want to isolate it. You know, I don't think the story is as tight as some of the other episodes, and I don't think the jokes are as sharp. So yeah, it just all sort of adds up as you go through it, and they're not. None of them are awful. Nothing in this episode is awful. It's just slightly below the normal quality. Not Great Divide excluded, obviously.
it only adds up, and this second point here, not the first point, might be a big part of it. It only adds up. We said it before, but it only adds up if you're doing this. Like, I finished this episode and my heart sank a little bit because I was like, fucking hell, this is, apologies for swearing, this is not an episode. This is one of those episodes that does not benefit from two people trying to talk about it for 45 minutes. Partly because the best things about this episode we've already said, because they're also the best things about The Storm, which we watched last week. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
The Aang Fire Dude parallels. The idea of him having some good in him, but actually, is it good, or is he just doing it because he wants to be the one that captures Aang? And the notion of, like, it's not a great plan. They're probably going to suspect it's you if 2 days later you turn up with Aang. But he's so consumed by need to get Aang. All of that stuff is amazing, but a lot of those compliments and that discussion for us happened last week because that is also represented in The Storm.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I think this tries to take a new angle at it, and again, like many of the things in this episode, it's like it's not a completely new angle. It's like they took one step to the left rather than it being like a brand new take on the Zuko situation. You're right. There is an element of this is we're again demonstrating his desperation, but we're showing at this time that he's even willing to go against, his own nation essentially to get the glory for himself. Or is he? It's that duality. It's like, is he just trying to do the right thing? It's hard to know, but it's not like, wow, I never thought about that with Zuko before. It's like, it really fits in with everything we know. The closest to a new angle they get is this notion that they might have been friends had the circumstances been different. And, it's really interesting that Aang would think that. It's really
because it's an angle, though, is it? It's just a question. Like you could have posed that question to me on the podcast last week.
Sure, that's true. But it's having the character think that, having just fought as comrades side by side.
Yes,
in that escape.
I suppose
that is again. It's not a fully new angle. I'm not suggesting it is, but that's what I mean by that. It's not a new angle, but it's like a sidestep. It's like a slightly adjusted perspective on a thing we were already discussing as a show.
Yeah, because what's clever on that is obviously the characters don't see each other's flashbacks. So, whilst we saw both sides of the coin last week, they didn't. So actually you do, I suppose, to be fair, and again, we're not even criticising the episode because, it's not built for 40. Yeah. Because to be fair, it's actually quite clever to go, okay, we've made the audience realise it here. Now we need to make the characters realise it. Which makes sense from a narrative point of view, but I suppose you go, but you're repeating beats. Was there a way to make the characters and the audience realise it at the same time? Probably not. Or, or maybe you make these a direct two-parter. You have Sokka and Katara begin to feel ill in the episode before, or you end with Aang getting captured, but then it is just a big escape sequence, I suppose. But yeah, I think you almost could link these more. But again, I can't stress enough, it's not a bad job. It's not the episode's fault. As you said, if you were just watching these, even I think if you were watching them week to week, but you just weren't analysing them.
Correct.
Because we are, of course, analysing Avatar.
That's the name of this podcast. Hey? That's the name of the podcast. Don't you just love it when our podcast is nothing but static?
Way.
Because that would mean you wouldn't be able to hear us talking, and that would be an improvement.
Where did I meet Stephen? University. Way.
Do you remember that time we observed Fringe? We were Fringe observers.
Oh, there you go. There it is. Virtual high five. Right, 1, 2, 3. We both clap at the same time. We clap after 3. Gotcha. 1, 2, 3. See, it's this shit that we need to fill with because the episode doesn't lend itself. But I think, like, with all sincerity, you wouldn't even notice it watching it week to week.
No.
We noticed it because of the depth we went into the storm, and like the depth of having something to say for this.
Yeah, well, it's not, I mean, I always try to see if I can find some angle that's like, because look, there are a ton of like people out there this show's kind of old now. Like it's, was it 2005? Like people have talked about these things, but they have been analyzed. So I make a real conscious effort, and I did the same when we did Steven Universe, when we covered it in Steven University, to try and make sure that we had a perspective that was not just necessarily not unique for the sake of being unique, but if there was something I had to say about the characters that I'd noticed and felt personally sort of like passionate about, then I was going to bring it up, So otherwise, what was the point of this podcast existing if there wasn't some sort of perspective? And so when we sit down to watch these episodes, we really do have to like have our A game on and think really carefully about what's happening in the episode, how it's affecting our opinion of it, how well it's put together, and from as many angles as possible. Because what you don't want to hear is two people who studied screenwriting coming out here every week and talking about the story beats or the narrative structure or the characters. We try to talk about like the animation, we try to talk about the jokes, like we try to talk about like the way it all comes together. And ultimately, when you look at this episode, I think it's when you're forced to really just take it as a piece of media and analyze it on its own, it doesn't quite hold up to the standard that was unfortunately set by The Storm the week before, which is obviously a very excellent episode of the show. But also, I don't even know if it's 100% on the same par when it comes to things like the fight choreography and the visuals as some of the other episodes as well. So it's just and again, we're not talking plummet into the depths of quality. This is not The Great Divide. This is just fractionally, but noticeably weaker. Is that fair? Maybe we're going to get absolutely destroyed in the comments. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. But I think, can I just say, Dan? I think you gave us both a disservice there. We didn't just study screenwriting. I believe we both got a meaty 2-1.
Yeah, correct. Which for those who don't understand, the British sort of the system for when you get a degree 2-1, I guess would that be like a B in America?
It's a B. Firm B's.
Firm B's. Actually, well, no, mine wasn't so firm, was it? Wasn't I like 1 point off the next grade up? And I'll always remember this because I was so bitter. My dissertation was what killed me in the end. I lost a lot of points in the dissertation because I'm not very good at academic writing, and I remember I gave the dissertation to my tutor, who was also then going to mark it later on, and his feedback was, add some more anecdotal evidence. This is obviously a very personal subject matter to you. Put a little bit of anecdotal evidence in it, just a little bit. So I do, and then the feedback I got back and had marks removed for was too much anecdotal evidence. So I've always held, like, because I think I was like 1 percentage point off, like getting the next grade up, which I think is the first, which is I guess the equivalent of an A. I was so frustrated that my dissertation killed me on that, and it was that point.
And if anyone thinks, oh God, I bet, especially if Chris himself got a 2-1, I bet, he was almost like quite cheerful that Dan was a point off because it was the same grade. I just want to say, no, that's not the case, because the only thing more insufferable than Dan getting a grade above is Dan feeling he should have got a grade above and banging on about it as if he did. So if anyone's thinking, no, I fully support his bitterness there.
I was just so bitter about it. And you know what? I think if it had just been that was the grade, like, and the feedback hadn't been specifically the opposite of what he told me in the meetings, I don't think I'd have ever cared. I'd have been like, I didn't get it. But it was knowing that I'd been logicked out of it by like some bizarre hypocrisy from my tutor. That was what really stung. But yeah, I will forever moan about that. I'm sure Chris has heard that story far too many times.
I don't think I have, actually, to be fair. I don't think, in all sincerity, I don't think you've mentioned it since it happened. Let's talk about, because I think, so, I mean, I'm firmly in the camp of he's trying to save Aang so that he can then be the one that captures Aang. Or at least
the very smallest version of that, to stop Zhao from being the one who captures Aang.
Yeah, I take it you're in agreement with me on that.
Yeah, I don't think it was a morality thing. I don't think Zuko thought it was the right thing to do. I think Zuko couldn't stand to see Zhao get one up on him, and I don't think Zuko. I think Zuko would have ideally left with the Avatar in his hands in his capture, because then he could easily take it back to the Fire Nation and be like, "Oh, this guy escaped from Zhao. I caught him, 2 or 3 hours later in the woods, whatever." You could make up some bullshit. He could have gotten around that, no problem. Slightly suspicious, but not like provable either way. But at the very least, if he released Aang from Zhao and Aang got away again, the Avatar escaped. He would have at least stopped Zhao from winning. Because the thing is, Zhao capturing the Avatar removes any hope of him ever restoring his honor. Keep in mind, the only thing he'll ever be allowed to return to the Fire Nation properly for is if he captures the Avatar, which at the time gone.
No, you go.
I was just gonna say, which at the time was given to him as almost like a joke task, like go find a unicorn. You can return when you have a unicorn. Like it was deliberately set up to be a failable task.
He's not thinking it through though, and I love that he's not thinking it through. By the way, because it shows that he's so obsessed with the mission. Because Aang could tell them, oh, by the way, I was captured initially by by the other dude, and then he took me, so.
I mean, I don't think Zuko's plan was necessarily to reveal himself as the Blue Spirit to Aang. I don't know how he was going to transition.
But then
though.
So then he lets Aang wander off, and then he's like, oh,
he lets Aang wander off. Then he takes off the mask and he goes around the other way, and then he's like, "Boo, I gotcha."
And Aang's like, "What's that in your pocket? Looks like a mask." And he's like, "No, I'm just pleased to see you, mate. Get in."
And those dual-wielding swords.
I don't know where getting the van came from.
Dual-wielding swords you got there? Nope. It's just one sword.
It's one big sword that's got a 3D effect.
Yeah. It's the sword and its shadow. Why does the shadow have so much texture and color? It's just a very advanced shadow. Don't worry about it.
But I think that's great. I love that he's so consumed.
Yeah, it does suggest a certain sort of like reckless passion, doesn't it? Like he's so obsessed with his mission. He's not even thinking his plans through, and it also speaks to his youth, I think, because it's easy to forget Zuko isn't like. He's not an adult either. I mean, he's not as young as Aang, obviously. He's older than Aang. He's sort of probably more in the sort of 15, 16-year-old range, I think. I'd have to look that up. But, he's still, not yet a man.
You're absolutely right. Another detail
all I'm thinking of now is I'm not a girl, not yet a woman. But from Zuko's perspective.
I remember, no one will know this, but there was an obscure band called North and South in the UK that also had a TV show called No Sweat.
I remember.
And their big song,
No Sweat.
Yeah, and their big song, their first song, which I think was their sort of highest charter, was "I'm a man, not a boy.
I'm a man, not a boy. I'm a man, not a boy." And then the bridge to that was "You don't understand, you don't understand," and it's like, what don't I understand?
Now that we're singing it, I don't think it was that great a song.
No, it's a terrible song. It's an absolutely awful song. I've pitched to Chris that for the Patreon at some point we do a little podcast where we break down lyrics of terrible songs because, man, there's some corkers out there. Me and Nadia recently took a look at the lyrics of Limp Bizkit's Break Stuff, and it's embarrassing. It's like a 12-year-old who's been sent to his room without supper. It's and Fred Durst is playing it like he's like this raw absolute badass or whatever. But you read those lyrics, it's like, oh dear, this is a child having a tantrum.
Straight on there for me is Aaron Carter. Ain't that cute? Ain't that cute? Holding hands in the park. Ain't that cute? Can't stay late after dark. That's the lyrics.
It's adorable.
But a small detail that I love because it's not like a revelation.
If anyone's feeling whiplash from that hard turn back to Avatar, I'm sorry.
This is not too much.
Aaron Carter. Anyway, so Avatar.
Hey, I mean, to be fair, that was when he was he was a child when he sang those lyrics. It's not like weird or anything, but it's just not an incredible song lyrically, but I fucking love that song.
Yeah. So so coming
in your
soon
head.
to a Patreon near you potentially. Anyway,
So a detail that I loved, because it's not a revelation. You could easily work this out yourself. But just hearing someone say it and like how cool a notion it is, I love the bit where the fire guy's like, "Don't kill him. I won't kill you, because if I kill you, then there's a new avatar and this whole thing starts again." I just love that notion.
It's clever, isn't it? Because it's sort of, you forget that the avatar would be reborn. I mean, it wouldn't be the end of the world if Aang got killed, because they would know the next avatar would be born into the Water Nation. So they would just, I guess, do to the Water Nation what they did to the Air Nomads. And it might actually work that time rather than the avatar going missing for 100 years. But then the same problem. If they kill the avatar, they're just gonna, it's just gonna keep looping back around. Air Nation next, So
for some reason I couldn't hear half that point.
Next. What would be next? Earth.
But can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, I couldn't hear that. You dipped out for like half that point. I assumed the point you were making from what I heard, but I just wanted to check that you could hear me. So apologies. Listeners would have heard me speak over you as I went, "Can't really hear you, Dan."
I didn't hear you say that either, so there must have been a signal problem.
Yeah. Oh well. Completely. It's a really clever notion. Obviously, they don't know that that whole comet thing would still, it would be, I suppose, technically to their advantage. But yeah, I thought that was really. I think that's a really clever idea, and it was nice to hear it voiced this week.
Yeah, and then in Zhao's speech as well, because I think that is a smart plan, like to just let him just be captured. Like, why would we kill him? That wouldn't help our cause at all. Makes perfect sense. And when he says it, you almost feel stupid. I feel like the first time I watched this, when he said it, I felt stupid for ever thinking Aang's life was in danger, because why would they kill him? It makes no sense. That would just be putting passing on the Avatar power and responsibility to someone else to then go out and capture. That's chasing your tail all forever, isn't it? So that made perfect sense to me, and I almost felt stupid for having not occurred to me previously. But then as well, there's a menace to it, because it's like he doesn't say he's gonna just keep him captured. He describes him as being like, you'll be barely alive, just alive enough to not pass on you, which just speaks to a really brutal existence, potentially. Quite a dark concept for a Nickelodeon show from that era. And then, of course, he gives his big old, Hitler speech, and talking about the Fire Nation finally breaking through the walls of Ba Sing Se and burning it to the ground. Now, you may or may not remember this detail from a previous episode, Chris, but I think it was the Winter Solstice two-parter, when we revealed that one of the reasons
Uncle Fire Dude,
exactly, Iroh has had sort of shame put on him and has been sort of had is also out trying to restore his honor, as he was this once great general that had laid siege to Ba Sing Se. In reference to the walls here suggests that it was a lot of hanging around outside the walls going, "You gonna let us in yet?" But after hundreds of days, I think they said, he after years, he gave up and took his men home. They were tired. And the idea that they're talking about going back to Ba Sing Se, which is a place we've not yet seen. The Earth Kingdom city we saw was Omashu. So Ba Sing Se is this recurring idea, and I do like again. It just makes the world feel bigger and consistent. Like when you keep referencing stuff like that, and it makes sense, assuming you're paying attention. Like I could see somebody not really taking in the name Ba Sing Se from the episode where Iroh, and those Earth Kingdom soldiers talked about that. But you'll certainly remember the notion, right? Even if you don't remember the city name. So I think it's a really cool consistency that the show is building up.
Definitely.
Where there's almost like an understood language of the world, because you're just picking up details here and there, and they're going in. So when he talks about taking over Ba Sing Se, that's a big moment for the Fire Nation. They've laid siege to that city before and haven't succeeded, and it's a big Earth Kingdom stronghold, and that if they were to take that down, it would be a very big step for them completely controlling everything. And the way the show is doing that isn't by having necessarily the villain explain that, but just by referencing it multiple times, you just kind of know you understand its importance to the Fire Nation, militarily, like strategically. You understand that it'd be a big win for them. It's probably one of the last major strongholds that seems impossible to really take down in the Earth Kingdom. With Omashu as well. So it's again just subtle, not too on the nose, but you definitely pick it up. I think even casual viewers just sort of watching it without like paying too much attention would sort of be starting to get a sense of Ba Sing Se.
Definitely, yeah. I think they do a really good job in general of like sometimes like armies, like I think Thanos' army suffers a little bit from this, and I think sometimes the Empire in Star Wars just feels like just a big swarm of faceless people. But I think they do a really good job with the Fire Nation of like making them all villainous and making them feel like a threat. Even despite the fact that one person defeats them in this, but that is one person who is a member of the Fire Nation. So like there is a point where when Aang's captured in this, like before Fire Dude appears in his mask, where you're like, how's he getting out of this one? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I'm like, is Momo going to rescue him? Like, so yeah, and part of you, I don't think you'd feel that way if they didn't do such a good job of making the Fire Nation a credible threat.
Yeah, because that's the problem you sometimes have with these shows. Like, at a certain point in an animated show, when the same enemies keep turning up and the hero keeps winning, the danger becomes that the threat doesn't seem like a threat anymore, because it's just like it's almost a joke that they keep trying. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. I think it was kind of true from episode 1, but like I always think back to Team Rocket in Pokemon. It's like, at what point are they a credible threat? Like, after they've embarrassed themselves and failed to capture Pikachu X number of times, start to take them seriously. So the show leans into that and makes them humorous and has their boss Giovanni feel like a more legitimate threat. But it would be nice if every member of that group felt like a threat. Yeah.
Well, it's like the putties in Power Rangers. Just reaches a point where you're like, they're not even morphing to defeat these fellas. Like,
yes. Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a real truth to that, and I think the way this show does it is it really makes Aang work for every victory. It's never easy, and it's always scrappy, and it's always just by the skin of his teeth, which makes the Fire Nation seem incredibly threatening without having to actually, have them capture Aang and win ultimately. And then even here they have him. It's genius to have them capture him. I can't exactly remember how I felt when I first watched this episode about that, but like, I got to imagine the first time I watched this episode, I'm like, holy shit, they've caught Aang. Like, wow, what are we, like,
that's how I felt.
13 episodes in? That's insane. How do we get out of this one?
Yeah,
especially because the episode,
that's what I thought.
Yeah, and especially because the episode goes to the trouble of setting up that Katara and Sokka ain't coming to help him.
No.
That from early on. So it really does feel like how does he get out of this? And then the sequence in which he gets out of it, as much as I've sort of said this episode's, fractionally less the quality of usual, I do still love that sequence where they're escaping and they're working together to do it.
The bit where they use the big kind of sticks, but they put them down one at a time. That was a great visual. That looked awesome. I think the idea more than the actual
execution, but agreed. Sorry,
that was some really cool visuals. Like that whole sequence is great. It's one of those things where it's hard to know what to say other than kick-ass action sequence. But yeah, the animation and the cleverness and also again, I think that links back to what we were saying about the Fire Nation feel like a credible step. They've really got to go some to escape. There's multiple walls. There's multiple. Do you know what I mean? He almost gets in a bit too easy, but the escape is certainly. It certainly shows how well protected they are, and emphasizes like Aang would have really struggled without him.
Yeah, well, getting in is an interesting one because even that they don't just show him under the car getting in, which would be super easy. It's not a car, sorry, it's like a carriage, isn't it? Under the carriage, sorry. Getting in, that would be, but they have to then get stopped, even though it's a Fire Nation carriage. The Fire Nation still stop it to inspect it before letting it in, and he has to, like, I guess knowing their procedures, knows they're going to check underneath and knows what moment to switch from underneath to inside, and he has to do that completely silently. So even that could only have been done by like an expert like level ninja, essentially. Anyone else trying what he was trying just under that carriage wasn't they were getting found. So again, the Fire Nation do seem competent, and even when Aang and Zuko are using the sticks to escape, they light them on fire because that's a great solution. Like at multiple points they get outsmarted and get and again it all just builds up the Fire Nation feeling like a genuine threat to them. And again, it could have easily just been the two of them fighting their way to the walls, but showing them as specifically working together as well. Like there's a point when the Blue Spirit runs at Aang and Aang uses airbending to flick him up onto the wall. Just little things like that, and showing them work together. Again, it really emphasizes those end moments. That end moment where Aang says that if things have been different, it could have been friends. And by the way, I just want to give credit to the voice acting there specifically. I forget the name of the kid who voices Aang. Let me see if I can. Zach Tyler Eisen. What a brilliant job! What an incredible job!
Absolutely.
Like the sort of there's a wistful sadness. He knows it's not going to happen, but you hear the sadness in his voice for a lost friendship that doesn't exist. It's so brilliant. Like, I mean, the words are obviously really well written. We've both complimented that last scene a lot. It's really great. Oh, fuck. Like, that kid is the absolute final hammer in that nail for sure.
Was there any triv, Dan?
I got a couple of little things I just wanted to talk about very briefly. I like the Yuyan archers. They're pretty cool. I mean, good attempt at trying to convince me Hawkeye isn't the most useless Avenger. Sorry, he still is, but good effort.
I like Hawkeye.
Go on.
I just say I like Hawkeye. Just giving Hawkeye some love.
It's hard to like Hawkeye when he has that stupid fucking haircut in Endgame, isn't it, really?
Yeah, but that's when he's Ronin.
Lost my wife and kids. Gonna get a mohawk. Stupidest haircut I've ever seen in my life.
Scene. Coming to Disney Plus soon. I mean, that is how Jeremy Renner would probably deliver that line, but
it's the dumbest haircut in the history of haircuts. I enjoy. I want to briefly talk about some of the Aang and the Sokka and Katara stuff with Momo. We haven't really mentioned that. There's a running gag. It's kind of the Baby Groot gag from Guardians 2, but obviously before that. So I guess the Baby Groot gag from Guardians 2 is kind of copying this, where they're trying to communicate to Momo to get them some water, and he's not. He's getting all sorts of random shit. It's kind of funny, I guess. No.
Yeah, I quite liked it. Oh, that's fine.
The only bit I thought was funny was that really weird bit where, like, so Katara now has like a crown on, and Sokka just subtly refers to her as Your Highness, which I did. Yeah. I thought that was quite funny, to be fair.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah. What else? I'm sure I made a few different notes of some of the bits to talk about. Oh, Sokka, got a question for you, mate. Aang comes back from being away, and you say, "How was your trip? Did you make any new friends?" Now, I know it sets up his answer of "No, I don't think I did," or whatever. It's like the sad moment of like realization that didn't work. But I've got questions about Sokka's thinking there. What have you ever? When Jess goes to the shops, Chris, and she comes back, do you go make any new friends?
Yeah, but to be fair, he's all delirious and stuff. I just put that down to that.
Yeah, and it just feels like how convenient that Aang's just been talking about friends, and now he's asking. It's like it's that hand of the writer thing, isn't it? It's just not very subtle. It's just so on the nose. Like, of all the things he could have asked in that moment, even if it is a result of his delirium, it's the exact right question for the dramatic moment. You know what I mean? It feels a bit
that's
coincidental.
Fair. But yeah, that's fair. Yeah, you can see the seams. I don't think it's that egregious, but yeah, no, that's fair.
I think that's all I have in the way of notes for the actual episode. Although I did wonder if they could sell some of the random shite that Momo brought them and make some money. Some of that stuff,
maybe. Yeah.
Some of that stuff looked valuable. Like that crown looked like.
Where's he get? Yeah, so where's got all of that shit?
Fuck knows. I mean, I guess that's the joke. Like, I'm supposed to go, where nearby would you found a crown? Like, It seems like getting water would have actually been easier than getting all the stuff he's got.
Did you feel a little bit like they played fast and loose with the wind thing? Did you feel a little bit like sometimes he's understood perfectly?
Yeah, definitely.
But then again, I suppose that's animals, isn't it?
Speaking of that, actually, on the subject, I also don't like Aang just spinning a stick round and being able to create a helicopter with his hands. Weird. Don't like it.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
Not my favourite
That's
thing
fair.
Aang does. Power-wise, doesn't quite work. Especially when he's got Zuko hanging onto him. Like, the actual, like, weight to, like, force he could generate, I don't know. You could just go down to airbending. It's magic, basically, you know, but it just feels like it defies physics a bit more than the show normally lets them do. Anyway, trivia time, Chris. Trivia.
Yes,
So,
hit
do you
me.
remember-
Hit
do
me
you
with that triv.
Do you remember last week I said that it was like the creator's like favorite episode or second favorite episode or third favorite episode, something like that. Well, it turns out this one is his second favorite episode because of the mysteriousness of the Blue Spirit, which, as we said, is the best thing of the. He likes the episode for its use of action and the surprising twist. Iroh plays the Sungi horn as Zuko returns. You can see in the background in that scene the bejeweled monkey statue that he was eyeing up in the pirate store in the waterbending scroll can be seen. So he did either buy or steal that in the end. Speaking of that horn,
Good triv.
the actual instrument used to make that sound is called a duduk, and it's that noise that it makes is actually the noise they use whenever Zuko, you know, like switches between himself and the Blue Spirit. That sort of ooh noise that comes with that is, I think, from that horn. So there you go.
Oh, so the Blue Spirit comes back again then.
I mean, he's got the kit. I suppose if he ever needs to do anything stealthily again.
Nice. I look forward to that.
Okay, there you go. I guess we'll call that a tease because I fucked up.
Yeah, that's fine. I like a tease.
I go through all the triv and remove the spoilery stuff, I thought, but there you go. In the Avatar Extras bonus commentary, one of the commentary bubbles for the episode says it was originally going to be called the Red Spirit, with the mask being red, but they dropped that idea because it made him too much. Well, two reasons. One, apparently it made him look like an ancient Korean version of Spider-Man. But the other problem was that it seemed too Fire Nation-y, and they thought
I was going to say, it's a bit on the nose, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a bit too Fire Nation, a bit too, like, leads you to Zuko. Apparently, though, weirdly, this one's really weird to me, because presumably they must have made the change to a blue mask pretty early in production, right? Because you've got to reanimate, the colouring and the design has to be set when you're going into full animation. Yet somehow, some services such as DirecTV still were mistakenly titling the episode as The Red Spirit. Mad. Very weird.
That's crazy that it was caught in enough time to change that, but not change the episode for some people.
Yeah, I don't know how that happened. It's apparently, well, it says still, as in still to the, as it's suggesting still to this day. I don't know how when this trivia was written, and maybe that's been fixed now. I don't know.
Fair enough.
The Avatar Extras commentary bubble also states that the Zuko mask wears as the blue. The mask Zuko wears as the Blue Spirit is actually an Earth Kingdom theater mask, similar to the frowning, smiling masks in our world's acting theaters. You know,
Which I did
comedy
clock,
tragedy
actually.
masks. Was that, sorry?
Yeah, I'm just saying I did clock that. I thought it looked quite similar.
Right, yeah. So it's kind of like a theatery mask, which is, I think, is about right, because I you know, and I know that they take influence from all different Asian cultures, but I mean, when we went to like Chinese New Year, there were a lot of people wearing those kinds of masks. You know, there's like heavily decorated masks and stuff. So I guess that's one of the other things they kind of borrowed from Asian culture. The other commentary bubble claims that the movie Rambo was a reference for the scene of Aang jumping off the cliff to escape the archers initially. I don't know exactly which scene in Rambo. I'd love to see those two scenes side by side. I think that's fun. But there you go.
Yeah, I don't remember thinking, "Oh, Sylvester Stallone," but yeah, I'm sure if you compared.
Yeah. Interestingly, well, not interesting. I suppose it kind of, you might have noticed this just in the tone of the last two episodes, but when Nickelodeon ordered this series, they originally only ordered 13 episodes. So they created and designed this episode and the one before it, sort of feeling like it could serve as a season finale if need be. In the end, they got more episodes ordered, obviously, and it sort of became a mid-season finale as well. But you can feel that tonally, can't you? I mean, you noticed last week for the Storm because you were like, we just come from like the Great Divide, which is quite a standalone episode, to the most mythology, the entire backstory for Aang and Zuko. So I suppose you could probably see how it was supposed to serve as that.
Yeah, I think you can.
The production team intended Aang to have Aang suspended in air, shackled on all 4 limbs. It would have had his hands would have been like pulled up onto chains, and it would have been hanging, in the middle of the room rather than on the floor, and his ankles would have been shackled, pulling his feet apart as well. Apparently, standards and practices did not allow that. I guess they thought that looked a bit too violent or a bit too painful.
It does sound, especially when you think of that with the shot of him running towards him with the knives.
Yeah, that's a fact.
That would feel very violent.
Yeah, I guess that's true. It's worth noting, can I just say that we had a problem occasionally we bumped into with the trivia on Steven Universe when it was trivia that just wasn't trivia. It was either just a description of a thing that happened in the episode or just some other weird thing that just was like, I don't know why you think that's trivia. I'm going to occasionally highlight good ones from this just for their insanity. Someone genuinely has added to the trivia page for the Blue Spirit episode on the Avatar fandom page. This is the first episode in which a character gets sick.
That's like adding no character urinates in this universe. Like, just assume, you know what I mean? It doesn't need to be said.
It's insane. So there you go.
But the rest of that triv was some top trivin.
Yeah, it's a corker, that one, isn't it?
I just want to say before we go, just very, very quickly, I don't want to talk about it in any great detail.
Sure.
But again, it's November the 13th, and for us, it's been about a week since this happened, and I just want to say, because I want to say it on this podcast, I want to say it on Nothing But Static, that even though it's been about a week, Dan, I don't know about you, but I am still laughing my ass off at the fact that the Trump campaign accidentally booked the wrong 4 seasons and still held the press conference anyway at 4 seasons total landscaping. And just in case in January, when people are listening to this, you've forgotten that happened, and it was incredible that they both did that and then held the press conference regardless.
It's like something from an episode of The Thick of It, or like Parks and Rec. It's just a little bit of joy to the people of January, to remind you of the insanity of November.
Remind you that happened, because genuinely, I have laughed out loud about that every day since.
Yeah, and you know what? A really nice thing has happened from that as well. The Total Landscaping guys had put out a bunch of merch making fun of it and like taking advantage.
Didn't they say like "Make America Rake Again" or something?
They've done a bunch. They've been absolutely on top of it. Like, they've been amazing. They've put out T-shirts, different slogans, different jokes, and they've basically said that when they first got the call about the press conference, they thought it was a joke. They thought it was a prank, but they were like, well, if it's money, it's money, so we'll just agree. And then they put in a podium, and then the rest is history. But to their credit, they're donating a huge amount of that money to the money they've made from the merch to a charity, to an LGBT charity, which is like awesome. I don't know the exact proportions, so maybe I shouldn't have used the word huge, but like my understanding was like proceeds from like the T-shirts and stuff were going that way, which is just incredible. So not only is it like one of the funniest thing that's happened, but the company in question are kind of have cashed in on it, but in a really nice way. So I'm just like,
I think it's just there were so many points to like.
That's great.
When you realise, because they must have, when he changed the tweet, they must have realised there were so many opportunities to like
not do it.
But I just want to know I want to hear the conversation where they went, no, let's plough ahead.
Yeah, I think they knew that it was about to be called, and I think they wanted to pip it being called. I don't think they wanted it to be called before they did their thing, and that's why they were rushing out. But then the hilarious thing, of course, happened is it got called during their press conference, which is just even better. Honestly, you couldn't write this shit. Anyway, one last little bit of admin, if that's okay, Chris.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because I'm sure people have commented on that episode. So in the Great Divide episode, I made a slight, I won't use the word blunder. I kind of misremembered something. So we had a piece of trivia in the Great Divide that the episode had originally been listed as Bitter Work. And we were like, Bitter Work? We started trying to think of how that might apply to the Great Divide. I don't know if you remember that.
Oh, yeah, I do remember that.
Yeah, so Bitter Work wasn't like an early title that got scrapped that it still sort of comes up as on Nickelodeon websites, as some of the other alternate titles have been. No, Bitter Work is a mix-up with a later episode. There's an episode called Bitter Work in like the second season. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's that's where that. So it's literally a mix-up rather than an alternate title. I think it's like the 9th episode or 10th episode of like season 2. So
did the trivia
and what I love is I know, for us it's November the 13th, as Chris has pointed out, and only 2 episodes of this podcast have been released. But I know the Great Divide episode is going to go up, and everyone is going to put their comments about how, oh, Dan, don't you remember Bitter Work is actually the episode from season 2? And there's going to be I'm going to estimate double-digit comments making that statement. I realised the second we stopped recording is the sad fact of that.
Just like he was only 1 point away from that first, eh?
Because I still have the trivia page open on my notes.
You're always inches away from getting it right, aren't you, Dan?
Inches, never there though. Have you noticed that? There's a running theme of never quite being right.
No, I'm joking, of course. Yeah, no, fair play.
Actually, no. So Bitter Work was an alternate title. It's fake news. I'm just gonna start doing a Trump now, pretending that everything I say that's wrong was correct.
I saw a comment that was like, I won't see that because I saw a comment that was like one of the episodes that was like, I don't know if you're letting Chris read these, Dan, but he shouldn't read this. It's a spoiler. So I stopped reading, and as I stopped reading and closed the tab, I thought, there's my excuse to never have to read the comments on these ever again.
It's fair,
but
that's fair.
I will try. No, I would love to read them, but I just want to avoid spoilers. But I have been seeing a lot of good feedback, and actually, shout out to my friend Sam. He sent me a message that I think it said something like, "Hey, hun, just want to tell you how much I'm enjoying the Avatar podcast," which was very sweet of him. So, thank you, Sam.
That's nice. Thanks,
Thank you, buddy.
Little shout out. Shout out. Happy that people are enjoying it. So we'll call it wrapped up because you've got work to get back to
because we're done. Yeah. Because we've reached the end of the podcast.
Yeah. So, as always, the incredible art that goes along with this podcast that you can see if you're on like Spotify or iTunes or whatever, you can go to the page of the person who drew it and get some more and look at some more of their incredible art. That's Raffo Draws. So it's Instagram.com/Raffo Draws, launchlinks.io/Raffo Draws for links to their like Tumblr and Twitter and YouTube and all that stuff. I think there's a Redbubble account where you can get like t-shirts with this stuff on as well. I assume portion of that money goes to the creator. Absolutely go support Raffo Draws. Been super nice about this whole thing, really helpful. Definitely go do that. Other stuff, patreon.com/nothingbutstatic if you want to hear us talk about the very next episode right now. All I'm going to say for you, Chris, as a teaser for the next episode is clouds.
Okay. Okay.
Which is just so vague you'll never be able to parse what that might mean intentionally.
No, well, I assume that someone's ill and they need to get some frozen cloud.
Yes,
that's what Ang needs to fly out.
You need to stop looking at the Wikipedia pages, mate. It's too accurate. It's not realistic when you're that accurate, Chris.
That's why I firmly got a 2-1. All my dissertation, I just referred to Wikipedia.
It's the only thing you referenced.
I did quantitative research for that, or qualitative, whatever one it was.
Good, man. The fact that you don't know the difference between the two suggests maybe not.
No, dude. No. Quantitative is like factual, based in numbers, and qualitative is something like people's opinions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Boom.
I bet you could still do the Harvard referencing system and everything, couldn't you?
Do you remember that? I was the man at Harvard referencing.
Yeah, actually, you know what? You were, weren't you? I didn't remember that until you just said it. And actually, yeah, you were quite good at that, which is annoying because
my Harvard referencing was always very detailed and very accurate. Yeah.
And yet I'm the one that's, was just a mark or two away from a first, Mr. Braggy over here about his Harvard referencing. Just saying. Brings that up every week, doesn't he? He Harvard references in his emails.
It's just
I sometimes get texts, and I think, oh, Chris sent me 2 texts. One is the text, one is the Harvard references for the text. I fucking hated that Harvard referencing system. I was like, what does it matter where the comma goes? Like, it doesn't matter. Can you see what the reference is? Clearly enough to go look at it. Like, piss off with your referencing system.
I just imagine if I could put the effort in, I will Harvard reference you a text at some point.
Yeah, please do. You can get us in all the usual places. If you want to send us some Harvard referenced emails, you can do so at mail@nothingbutstatic.co.uk. You can also help us out massively if you'd like. So, I didn't get through the Patreon stuff, did I? Patreon.com/nothingbutstatic if you'd like to go support us there, where you can get next week's episode now. In terms of another way you can help us that doesn't involve money, because it's as little as $1 a month over on the Patreon, but if you don't, if you can't afford that, which is trying times, absolutely, but you still want to help us out, if you head over to the podcast app of your choosing and rate us, that helps massively too. So you can give us the star rating system on iTunes. Feel free to just give us a 1-word review should you wish to. That's fine, no problem. You don't even need to do that. I think you can just star rate them. That on any platform really helps get us up the rankings. So we'd appreciate anybody doing that. It's the doorbell's gone. Nadia's going to have to answer. I'm going to hear her say hello on the thing. It's very exciting.
Yeah, for all of us, Dan.
No, she's already let them in. Someone else has already let them in. That's disappointing. So I'm trying. I'm at Dan Doolan on Twitter. Chris is at C Billingham. There is an at Nothing But Static without the G, but we don't really use that anymore because it just became really like I was better at maintaining one Twitter account than 2. That's for sure. So yeah, that's I think that's everything for this week. I don't think I've got anything. Yeah, have I done all the bits? I think I've done. Oh yeah, YouTube.com/nothingbutstatic.uk if you want to subscribe and like the videos. We appreciate that too. So there you go.
I think by this. Oh no, and then hopefully like around this time, hopefully. In the new year, we're hoping to put some extra Patreon content up. So obviously that very much depends on the old external environment and what's if we can get that together. But it's worth checking in on the Patreon for that as well.
Yeah, we've had a couple of different ideas for some stuff to do for Patreon that like a little spin-off, sort of like the sort of things that we could never do a full podcast of, but we think are a fun little idea. Like the thing I mentioned earlier about going through doing a few episodes where we just go through some bad lyrics. Or there's an idea I pitched to Chris last night that I think he's knowing Chris. I text him and he texts me back, Harvard referenced, of course, to be like, yeah, that sounds like fun. But if I know Chris, he's been thinking about that already, and like his excitement building about that. Yeah, okay. So there's an idea we've got. And then of course there's the infamous Nothing But Claps episode we've promised, which is a podcast all about clapping. Chris has been planning for God knows how long. So a lot of ideas for the Patreon. So it's actually going to start having more than just this content weekly early. It sounds like we're sort of just using it now as a platform just to do all the weird shit we can't do on any of our main podcasts. So there's going to be some good stuff on there.
It's a dream.
But anyway, we've waffled enough there's been enough admin on this one. So that is everything for this week. Thank you very much for listening. I have been Dan Doolan.
I've been Chris Billingham.
And come back next week if you'd like to hear us discuss The Fortune Teller.